Today we're going to walk through the Ventrac Aera-vator EA600. This unit may look a little different than what you're used to seeing. Most people run the seed box on top. I actually don't have the seed box. When I bought the unit, it was used and it didn't have one on it. I do have the rear roller attachment, and I've also purchased 4 additional suitcase weights that will sit on top of the Aerovator, give it a little bit more weight in hard compact soils. This machine does have a kickstand on the back, and I'm currently at the 3rd hole from the top, and that's pretty good to keep the hookup arms level. So when I first purchased this unit, I had a really difficult time hooking it up. It is pretty lightweight and it does roll on the bearings, so when you're trying to hook up to it, you may end up pushing it forward, and it makes it pretty aggravating to hook up because it's moving forward on you. But the biggest issue that I had, I'll show you how I resolved that. This handle right here, it's in the transport position, and if we take it down to the run position, it actually moves this pulley down. It's kind of like an idler pulley and puts tension on the belt, and this is what actually drives your head of your unit. So as you move this lever back, it adjusts this metal bracket up. So if you have it in the run position with that metal bracket pointing down, and you try to slide your hookup arms through there, you're going to hit that metal bracket and your hookup arms are not going to go in. Should be able to see it moving up in there. So it's very important when you hook this unit up to the front of your tractor that that is in the transport position. We've got 4 grease points on this Aerovator. One of them is on your bearing, on your drive shaft right here. The other one is inside the window behind this leg. You can't see it yet, but what you do is rotate the pulley that's hooked to the PTO belt and it'll spin it into view. You've got one on each side of the roller. It'll be hard to cover every use that I have for this Aerovator. Probably forget a lot of it. I'll try to find some footage of pictures or videos where I've used it in the past. But we'll start with what I'm going to be using it for today, and that's going to be aerating this Zoysia that you see behind me. So in my personal yard, I aeravate it monthly during the growing season. So we're the 3rd week of April, and it's starting to green up really nice. So we're going to start aerating it today. I found that it tends to retain water a lot better. It tends to not dry out as quick, holds the green color better. You don't see any drought stress, allows water to get down to the roots. Seems like I see a lot of benefits from doing it, so I'm going to continue to do it monthly. So what I've used it for the most is on a bare dirt renovation, especially with fescue seed. What you can do is broadcast the seed, and then you can run over it with the Aerovator, make one pass, and it'll actually set the seed down into the soil. Kind of helps with erosion, and I've seen a lot better germination with the seed down in the soil. It holds moisture better. You don't have birds eating it. A lot of benefits to that. On a slightly different note, if you're seeding Zoysia like you see behind me, this was all seeded. I've done Bermuda. You do not want to run the Aerovator over top of a warm season. It will more than likely set it too deep in the soil. It really needs to be sitting right on top. But what I do use it for is to broadcast all of the nutrients out. So if I'm doing a corrective nutrient of potassium or phosphorus, or if I just want to put the starter fertilizer out and put it down into the soil, I will spread all my lime fertilizers out, and then I'll run over it with the Aerovator one pass and actually set the fertilizers down into the soil. So we'll just talk a little bit about some of my experiences with the Aerovator. I've used it in all different situations, and one thing I've noticed is it will do something different in every situation. So if we start with bare dirt, I use it a lot on bare dirt whenever I'm doing initial seeding or putting fertilizer out. When you run it in bare dirt, you can run it forward or backwards. Backwards tends to dig a little bit better. Forward, you got the roller coming behind it, so it smooths it up. If the dirt is bone dry and it's hard, it's gonna vibrate and break the soil up and leave it a perfectly smooth area. If you brought in a lot of dirt and it's kind of powdery and loose, when you run this aerator over it, especially in the forward direction, it's actually going to push piles of dirt with you. So just be careful of that. It really needs to be more firm than it does loose. If the dirt has moisture in it, it's going to more than likely break it up in chunks about the size of your palm when you run the aerator over it, and it's going to leave chunks on the ground and it's not going to smooth it up well. If you run over established grass, you're more than likely going to vibrate a hole about the size of your finger. It's going to look like you ran a core plugger over it. If it's really dry, it's going to fracture the top of the ground and make it look sort of like it would if you were running over bare dirt that was compacted. So when you activate the PTO switch, you should not see the unit start up. It won't start up until you actually lower it onto the ground. For this reason, Ventrac recommends the weight transfer to be in the 0 position, which is fully forward and all the weight on the implement itself. I've never tried to run it in any other position. It may or may not work, but you have to put pressure on the bottom roller to get the head to activate. I try not to make too many sharp turns with the aerator in the ground. It's really recommended not to, but you'll see that you'll also tear up some turf if you do that. One thing to keep in mind that your speed will dictate how many holes per square foot, and Ventrac does recommend running the PTO at 3,200 RPM. I've run it at 3,500 RPM many of times and it seems to do just fine. There's your good shot of what it looks like on established turf. We're about 1.5 to 2 inches in the ground. There's a side-by-side comparison. This is running the machine in reverse. This is running the machine forward. And just going in forward, you can tell that the roller and the tire tracks seem to kind of cover up the holes a little more. And then running in reverse, they're a little bit more pronounced. This is what it looks like if you're on a turf that hasn't had rain in a while. This is part of my yard that doesn't get good irrigation. It always stays dry up here, and you can see how it just goes through and it completely fractures the soil. Always appreciate y'all watching. If you got any questions or comments, just leave them below.